Still retains a lot of the traditional Xiaomi Redmi design cues. For example, the keys are in backlit, the power button and the volume rockers are still found to the right. We have a slot to the left, and here you can add either two SIM cards or a SIM and a microSD card. The primary microphone and the micro USB port reside at the bottom. It's worth mentioning that the Redmi 3 has support for USB OTG. What's new here is that along with the 3.5mm headphone jack and the secondary noise cancelling microphone up top, we now have an IR blaster. So you can use your Redmi 3 to control a TV or an air conditioner and whatnot. And all that's applicable here with just two changes put to the back. Number one, the pattern to the back, that's gone off. Number two, there's a fingerprint scanner included. The big change though is not one that's visible, but rather one that's underneath the hood. Here the Redmi 3S is powered by the Snapdragon 430 chip. Now that's 8 Cortex-A53 cores with 4 cores clocked at 1.4 GHz each and another 4 clocked at 1.1 GHz each. If you think about it, that's 100 MHz lesser on both sets of cores when compared to the Redmi 3 Snapdragon 616. Well, that might be a downgrade of sorts. What's improved here is the GPU. With the Snapdragon 430, we get the newer Adreno 505 instead of the Adreno 405 from the Snapdragon 616. This Redmi 3S that I'm using in this video has 3 GB of RAM and 32 GB of onboard storage, while Xiaomi also sells a lower 2 GB RAM and 16 GB storage variant. The performance here is decent. With intense day-to-day scenarios like gaming, the Redmi 3S performed well. It ran everything we threw at it. A lot of them very well. It did drop a few frames with intense titles, but then again, here's a phone that's priced under 10,000 rupees or $150, so given the segment, the 3S punches well above its weight. Another thing that impressed me is the fact to be quite legible outdoors. Moving on to the camera, here we have the same hardware from the Redmi 3, a 13 megapixel rear camera with an f2.0 aperture, face detection autofocus and a single LED flash, and a 5 megapixel f2.2 front-facing shooter. Well, that's because I'm running MIUI 8 on this Redmi 3S. This implementation of MIUI 8 is built on top of Android 6 Marshmallow. Xiaomi's improved a lot of things, made some changes that brings MIUI closer to stock, like with quick toggles or the streamlined menu functionality. In fact, I have a dedicated video on MIUI 8 and here's a card to it, check it out for more information. Anyway, the fingerprint scanner works quite well, seems like the same hardware from the Mi Max and the Redmi Note 3, so quite quick and accurate. And given the smaller device footprint, using it feels a lot more natural. Overall, MIUI 8 here on the Redmi 3S is quite responsive and fast. Initially, I had my doubts about the Snapdragon 430 chip underneath, since we are, in fact, sacrificing 100 MHz of clock speed compared to the Snapdragon 616 from the Redmi 3, but turns out that didn't really affect the experience. Apps open up quick, not flagship quick, but relatively quick in the 3S.